What is up, ladies and gents? You know what time of day it is. It's XCN time, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about XCN. I'll be giving you guys my price predictions here for XCN over the coming days, as well as my targets here for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to this channel. So we're going to be diving straight in, and we're going to start off with the shorter term here on XCN. So as you can see, we are on the 1 hour chart right now, and essentially the trend here on XCN over the past few days has been going down. Of course, since this lovely low pump on the 23rd of April, the prices have been heading down here, but it's not just an XCN related issue. You can see that in the top right here, of all the coins that we have covered on this channel, quite a few of them are in the red. We can say that the majority of them are in the red. Of course, right now, my shorter term perception here on XCN is still extremely bullish. Of course, my major level that I'm watching out for here on XCN is this 1.66 cents level. You can see why this is important. It was basically support for the prices on the previous dip that we had. So essentially, as long as the prices in the shorter term stay above this 1.66 cents level, we've essentially got this higher low, which is a bullish structure, and it allows for XCN in the near future to break out of a triangle that, in my opinion, looks a little bit like this. Of course, you can see that we've got this resistance connecting the two highs of this price here that we've had on XCN. And we can treat this as sort of a right-angled triangle. And essentially, since I expect the market to be heading up, I do think that sooner rather than later, we are going to see another rise in price here in XCN, and perhaps a breakout from this beautiful right-angled triangle. Of course, the immediate price target for this chart pattern that we could see is the distance between the first test of support down here to the first test of resistance. Let me just make that a bit more accurate. We drag that distance to wherever we see a breakout. You can see that the price target changes depending on where we break out past this resistance. But let's say we break out at the end of April, so basically tomorrow, we could be looking at a price target here of up to 3.7 cents. So a 65% trade to the upside if we do break past this triangle. Now, I do think a move like this over the coming days or perhaps a few weeks is very, very likely. And I have quite a lot of reasons as to why I think that. Of course, the first and major one here is that Bitcoin has seen this new trend form. Of course, Bitcoin for the past 3 months, from January until the mid-April there, we saw Bitcoin in this downtrend. But over the past few days, we've seen Bitcoin break past its resistance, this gray line that you can see here. We saw it break out in spectacular fashion, bringing the prices here to 95K. We cleared this major zone of resistance here on Bitcoin. This was an important level to clear. And as you can see, the prices have just about cleared this level. And so we saw a clear breakout, we saw a clear bullish trend form, and of course it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, before Bitcoin makes a new all-time high. Of course, at the moment we can see that it's consolidating, and the longer it consolidates, the longer I do expect Onyxcoin to kind of just bleed a little bit. So maybe over the next few days we could even see something a little bit more like this, for example. But at some point in the future, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's next week, we are going to see Bitcoin make its next move up. And therefore, as Bitcoin is making that move, we should see a strong correlation between Onyxcoin and Bitcoin. And therefore, Onyxcoin also makes that move up. Of course, another strong reason that we have is that global liquidity here is increasing. So this chart here shows us the correlation between Bitcoin and the global liquidity. And essentially, the more global liquidity there is, the more money that generally flows into crypto. And that's why we see this strong correlation between Bitcoin and the global liquidity. And obviously, since Bitcoin is related to altcoins such as XCN, then by extension, XCN is indirectly correlated with this global liquidity. Of course, it makes sense intuitively, because when there is more money available in the financial systems, then just generally more of it tends to end up being invested into crypto. So that's why we see these prices rise. And as you can see, we are on the cusp here of this big uptrend that we've seen in global liquidity. Of course, updated, we are probably about here, which is why we've seen a bit of a consolidation here in Bitcoin, because we do see this minor dip on this global liquidity. But generally speaking, over the coming weeks, we should see this uptrend play out, given the fact that global liquidity has greatly increased these past few months. So that's another major bullish reason that I have for you guys. And so of course, we've got this right angle triangle that we could potentially look forward to here on XCN, but things get even crazier when we zoom out. If I just go on the 4-hour chart, so that we can see the price data that we had back in January as well. Of course, if we extend this resistance here that we've seen in the shorter term, you can see that astonishingly, this resistance encompasses this January peak that we had very well as well. We've got this resistance essentially covering the 2 April peaks that we've had, and this January peak after this massive pump that we had here on Onyxcoin. And now we've got this longer term resistance here on XCN. And what's crazy about this is that we also have a parallel support. If we connect the high of the price there in this first bit of the pump here in January, and we just extend that across to cover the lows here of where the price got to in April, we can see that we've got two parallel lines. We've got this support line that's been tested on 3 different occasions, the first time being a resistance in January and then twice in this April region. Of course, we've got this resistance that also forms that right angle triangle. And of course, if we break out past this resistance, not only do we see that right angle triangle, guys, but we could also be seeing this larger pattern play out. Of course, this pattern here is a bull flag. And if we see a clear breakout to the upside here from that resistance, so when I say a clear breakout, I'm talking about large green candles looking like this, for example. I'm talking about an increase in trading volume as we saw back in this region here, for example. That is what we want to look for when we see a potential breakout here on XCN. Of course, as prices drive past this resistance, we want to see those telltale signs that we've seen a successful breakout, and that gives us the best possible chance of this bull flag pattern happening. The price target of this bull flag is the distance of the parabolic move going into the flag in the first place. Of course, that was back here in January. We drag that distance to wherever we see the breakout. Let's say, for example's sake, it happens tomorrow once again, then we could be potentially looking at a price target here of 14.4 cents. That's a 522% trade here on XCN. So of course, guys, if you're looking for a great place to trade this breakout here on XCN, then look no further than the MEXC exchange. This is the exchange that I use for all my trading because they have some of the lowest trading fees. They don't require KYC, and for a limited time, they're giving every new user $20 when they sign up using the link in the description down below. So if you want to make use of that offer, again, sign up using that link in the description down below. It takes less than a minute to do so. Of course, don't forget to deposit some fiat currency or crypto into your MEXC account, and then they'll give you that $20 straight away. Of course, guys, thanks so much for all of your support on this channel. Let's get back into this video. So, of course, that's my shorter term price target here for XCN, a very ambitious one if we do get that clear breakout. However, in the longer term, my main price targets still fall along these Fibonacci levels. Of course, we've got these fib levels that have been very well respected here on XCN. For example, we can see that after that January pump, we had this 3-month-long downtrend where the prices essentially got down to this 0.382 fib. Right on the dot there, you can see that it was tested as a support. We saw a bounce from that 0.382 fib, and then this 0.786 fib was used here as a resistance. So we know XCN does really respect these fib levels. So of course, using that logic, if we do see prices rise here on XCN, we can expect these upper fib levels here at 1.414 and 1.618 to be places of resistance here for XCN and potential market tops if we get there. The first one is currently at roughly 17 cents. I really like this as a potential price target, longer term 2025 price target for XCN, because this is also the previous all-time high. And of course, if the prices are able to smash through this fib here, then the next price target becomes this 32 to 33 cents level, which is at the 1.618 fib. So those are my two longer term price targets here. I don't think they're going to happen anytime soon. We first need to see the correct conditions occur here in crypto. For example, we need to see Bitcoin making brand new all-time highs. I do think Bitcoin could head towards 150k in 2025. So as Bitcoin is making a high like that, that gives XCN a much better chance of getting to these upper price targets. At the moment as well, we are still in Bitcoin season. That means that Bitcoin is outperforming altcoins at this very moment. You may have seen this chart here. It's the Bitcoin dominance, and the Bitcoin dominance at this very current point in time is still extremely high. And generally we get an altcoin season when we see this Bitcoin dominance chart rapidly dropping or very, very low, as we did here in 2021. If you were around that time, essentially the altcoin season came after the Bitcoin's dominance chart rapidly dropped all the way from 60% down to 40% there and remained quite low. So that's kind of what we need to see in 2025 as well. As you can see at the moment, we haven't seen a significant drop here. We are at 64% at the moment, which is by this final fib here at 0.786 fib. That means that if it continues to meaningfully rise over the next few days, then we could see it go all the way to 73% before we start to see a drop. However, if it continues to struggle with the resistance at this 0.786 fib, that means we could see a drop here in the Bitcoin dominance sooner rather than later, and that would mean that we potentially get an altcoin season sooner rather than later. And of course, that is when XCN can truly flourish and hit these higher price targets. A more intuitive way as well to see how the altcoin season is going is by using just simply the altcoin season chart here on CoinMarketCap. As you can see right now, we are on 17, which means we are clearly in Bitcoin season. The last time we got anywhere near to an altcoin season was at the end of January there. You saw that we had a value of 53. So compare that to now, we are clearly in Bitcoin season here at 17 out of 100. And so it might be a little while before we start to see that reverse, before we see this Bitcoin dominance come down, and before we get a true altcoin season where we can see XCN hit these higher price targets. So that's something I'm really paying attention to as well. At the end of the day, most altcoins will reach their all-time highs and beyond when we see this Bitcoin dominance really dropping quite fast or quite low, around the 40% region. And so that's something I'm really looking forward to see happen in this year in 2025. Of course, like I say, that's going to be very bullish for XCN. So of course, heading over to the indicators here for XCN, let's just pull up the chart and just get rid of our annotations. This is essentially the picture that we have according to the moving averages on the longer time frames. We are obviously still clearly bullish by the fact that we are still well above the 200-day moving averages here on XCN. So that's obviously a really nice sign. Of course, if we get the MACD up, this is probably the only bearish signal that I have at the moment. And of course, as you can see on the daily MACD, we have had a sell signal come from the MACD there. So if there was ever a reason to be bearish on XCN, it would be this. However, there's just plenty of signs telling me that XCN is still very, very bullish at this point. Of course, on top of that, we've almost got a weekly MACD buy signal here. We've almost got a crossover of the two lines. It hasn't come in just yet, but if we do see prices rise throughout this week, then we should in theory see these two lines close in and get a weekly buy signal, which should be a very strong long-term buy signal. So we're seeing two contradictory signals, in my opinion, here on the longer time frames for the MACD. But according to the moving averages, we are still looking very, very nice. The volume price relationship is looking very great. Every time we see a dump in the price, we also see volume decline, which is exactly what we want to see if we want to see a pump here on XCN in the near future. So those are my thoughts here for XCN at the moment. Of course, as a summary of it all, I'm both shorter term bullish and longer term bullish. Of course, one of the main reasons, as I've showed you, is this liquidity crypto relationship that we have discussed. They follow each other very, very closely, and we've seen the global liquidity over the past few months absolutely skyrocket. So that should be very good for us here in XCN. Of course, the immediate price target is 3.7 cents from that right angled triangle. In the slightly longer term, I'm also looking at that bull flag there that sits at a price target of roughly 14 cents. And of course, my longer term targets here on XCN start from 17 cents all the way to 33 cents, of course. And of course, if you'd seen my previous videos as well, I had a very ambitious price target at $3.50. And of course, that stemmed from something that looked a little bit like this. This is a really long-term cup and handle pattern that could be in play here, where we've got this 3-year long cup formation. That bull flag that I showed you in the shorter term could also be the handle for this cup and handle pattern. If we break past this 5 cents region here on XCN, this could be in play. And of course, the price target from that cup and handle pattern is $3.50. So of course it's a really ambitious price target to have. Is about 200x from where we are right now. So take this one with a bit of a pinch of salt. The main targets for me are still between 17 and 33 cents, but I'm keeping my eye out for any such breakout past this 5 cents region. That tells me that we could potentially see this in play. Of course, as always, I'll keep you guys up to date with everything that I'm thinking, but for now, that's all I wanted to say on this video. So as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Do let me know down in the comments if you are holding any XCN, and otherwise guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video.